The name, I'm called Teacher Okongo Frederick, biology teacher. Welcome to Smart Learning at Andalusia Academy on Horizon TV. Our today's topic will largely cover on gaseous exchange. When we talk of gaseous exchange, we know that this is one of the characteristics of living organisms. So all the characteristics of living organisms you have to know. One of them is gaseous exchange. I will indicate our topic here. Gaseous exchange. The gases that are being exchanged in the body include oxygen and carbon dioxide. The body needs oxygen. Why do the body need oxygen? The body needs oxygen to carry out the respiration process. Therefore, the oxygen must be absorbed by the body through organs. These organs that are in the body that help to exchange or carry out the gas exchange, we are going to learn about them. We have smaller organisms. The smaller organisms, largely, they don't need the organs to carry out the gaseous exchange. So largely, the gaseous exchange in smaller organisms like bacteria is being carried through diffusion alone. So diffusion alone is enough to carry out the gaseous exchange in smaller organisms, because as you know that smaller organisms have larger surface area to volume ratio, while larger organisms like me, I'm a larger organisms, therefore I have small surface area to volume ratio. I will need the organs in your body. The organ that we use in gaseous exchange is called the lungs. Majorly, we use the lungs. So the lungs, we will know the structure of the lung. How do the lungs look like? So as I've indicated that the gas exchange, the major gases that you need in the body is, the major gas is oxygen. Then you will release the carbon dioxide. So the movement of oxygen into the body and the movement of carbon dioxide out of the body in living organism, that is what we call the gaseous exchange. And the oxygen, I've said, the reason why the body needs it is for aerobic respiration, for you to make energy. And the energy you can are being used in the living cells. We are going to check on the breathing system. I've said the major part of the body where the gas exchange takes place is your lungs, the breathing system in human. So the structure you can see here, this is a breathing system in human body. So the way you are seeing it, I'll label all the structure, what you need to know. So as you can see, we have got the two lungs. We have the left and the right lungs. They are of the same size, the left and right lung. We have got a tube which directly comes from the nostril. When you inhale or when you take in the gases, because during breathing, you breathe all the gases. You breathe oxygen, carbon dioxide, the nitrogen. So they get into the body through the nose, then they enter through this larger tube. This tube, as you can see, a tube is here. That tube has got rings of cartilages, which we call this tube trachea. So trachea has got a ring of cartilage around it just to keep it open. the trachea is also moist. So I've said this is the trachea. As you move down, there's a part called the bronchus. So I will just indicate as we move. The first part there. We have the first part known as trachea, which is surrounded by the ring of cartilage. To keep it open or stop it from collapsing so that it cannot block or it cannot collapse. So the air will enter through the trachea. So that is the first large tube, which has also got rings of cartilages. I will go to the second part of that tube. The second part of the tube, as indicated, we have got the bronchus. Just before the bronchiole, we have got the bronchus. So bronchus and the bronchiole are the smaller tubes. So we start with the bronchus, then go to the bronchiole. So we define the bronchiole as a smaller branch of the bronchus. Their largely major function is to allow the entry of the gases into the lungs. Then, as you can see, around the lungs, there are ribs, and individuals, every and each person have got the ribs. The ribs, there are so many number of ribs on both left and right, and the major function of the rib is just to protect the delicate lungs from any mechanical injury. Each and every person, you have got the ribs which protect you from any mechanical injury, because sometimes you can fall down, any injury can occur. So to protect you from any mechanical injury, the ribs surrounds the lungs. Also the ribs, we will see that they will help during the gaseous exchange or during the breathing. They have got the major function. That one will bring us to the rib muscles. The rib muscles in between the ribs, there are some muscles. Therefore, when I say in between, we will talk of intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles. Those are the muscles between the ribs. They help a lot in gaseous exchange. We'll see in inhalation and exhalation. Then we have got the bronchus as indicated, then the diaphragm. The diaphragm, down here we have the diaphragm. So diaphragm, which as you can see, is just a sheet of the muscles that is used during breathing. It changes the shape. When you breathe in, the diaphragm changes the shape. When you breathe out, the diaphragm will also change the shape. That is the reason why we say it is very important in breathing or in gaseous exchange. Then we have the larger part. When it comes to the lungs, we have the part called the alveoli. The alveoli, they are also known as air sacs. So the air sacs or the alveoli, this is the site now where the gas moves from the lungs to the bloodstream. And the blood from the bloodstream can move into the lungs. So I've only talked of two gases, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide. So oxygen is the gas that we take into the body. It gets into the lungs. Once it is inside the lung, which means it is of high concentration in the lungs, the specific part is the alveoli. So its high concentration in the alveoli within the lung will cause or will make it to have high concentration gradient compared to its concentration in the blood. Therefore, this gas, oxygen gas, will diffuse from the alveoli into the blood. Then carbon dioxide will also have high concentration in the blood, which the concentration gradient cause it to diffuse from the blood back to the alveoli. So the structure is well elaborated. We will put more emphasis on how the alveoli look like. So this is the structure of the alveoli. This is the structure of the alveoli. The alveoli, I have also said, they look like the air sacs. So the entry of oxygen will get into the air sacs. High concentration of oxygen in the air sacs will cause the concentration or diffusion gradient. Therefore, oxygen diffuse into the blood. So once they get into the blood is being pumped all around the body to the body cells, which they are being used during the respiration. So the movement of blood, as indicated, the movement of blood. So we say at this point, the movement of blood goes like that around the lungs. So the lungs has got the blood capillaries. So blood from the body, normally it has no oxygen. The blood comes from the body to collect oxygen from the lung. So once it arrives on the surface or in the blood flowing through the blood vessels, the oxygen will diffuse into that blood. Then the other hand, the blood that comes from the body has got high concentration of carbon dioxide, which diffuse into the alveoli. Then oxygen will be transported to all the body parts as indicated. So the way I've indicated that this is the alveolus, the bronchioles, then this is the blood with no oxygen. Then it picks oxygen, it becomes oxygenated blood. While the carbon dioxide, which is here, will diffuse back to the alveoli. That one brings us to what we call the features of the alveoli. This alveoli, what makes it easier for it to exchange the gases? So we have got the features that enable the alveoli to carry out efficient gaseous exchange. As you can see, the way it looks like the balloon type. These air sacs, they are like balloon type. So if they're of balloon type, that one we say that the alveoli have large surface area. So large surface area just to ensure efficient diffusion of gases, or more gases are in contact with the surface, therefore efficient diffusion of gases. Two, the wall of the alveoli, they are very thin, or 1 cell thick. 1 cell thick to reduce the distance. So you can see here the distance where the blood is, and the distance because this blood contains the more carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide will diffuse across the thin wall of the alveoli into the alveolus. So that is another characteristic that we indicate that they are made of 1 cell thick, or they are of thin wall. Two, another feature that I will indicate, they are moist. So they are moist, which means they have got the moisture or the water vapor just to dissolve the respiratory gases. Because the respiratory gases, for them to diffuse from the blood into the lungs or from the lungs into the blood, they must diffuse in a dissolved form. So the being moist is just to dissolve the respiratory gases that diffuse across. So as I have indicated that, one, the alveoli must have large surface area for efficient diffusion of gases. I've also said they must be moist to dissolve the diffusing gases. They also have got very thin cell membrane or thin wall or made of one cell thick, which shorten the distance by which the gases or the substance diffuse across, largely the gases, carbon dioxide and oxygen. Then lastly, but not least, it must have got blood capillary, must have well supplied with the blood capillary. So here, this is blood vessel with the blood inside it. That is the blood capillary. So all the alveolus, they are surrounded with heavy blood capillaries, which collect the gas from the lung and release the gas that are from the body. So the gas which is from the body is carbon dioxide. The gas from the lung which come from the atmosphere is oxygen. So oxygen comes from the atmosphere, get into the lungs. Its high concentration enable it to diffuse into the blood, then being supplied to the body, because the body cells need oxygen to carry out the respiration. The products of respiration are carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide, since the body cells do not need them, they have to be taken to the lungs. Then in the lungs, the high concentration in the blood enable them to diffuse into the alveoli and will come out of the body. What do we mean by the term ventilation? Ventilation. When we talk of ventilation, that is the major way how the body able to get in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. So the body should be ventilated. So ventilation, the way I've said, there are two ways in which ventilation will occur. One, breathing in, or which is also known as inhalation. So breathing in is also known as inhalation. What is inhalation? Inhalation is taking air into the lungs. The air that is being taken into the lungs has got high concentration of oxygen, enable it to diffuse from the lungs to the blood vessels. So inhalation, taking air into the lungs. The specific air I've said oxygen. Then exhalation. Now there's the gas which is being removed from the body. The gas which is being removed from the lungs is carbon dioxide. From the body produces carbon dioxide. Then that carbon dioxide is being released from the lungs. We'll check the percentage because sometimes not all the oxygen which gets into the lung will be taken by the body cells. So some oxygen will remain, and the remaining oxygen will just come out. Not all the carbon dioxide from the body will able to diffuse into the lungs. So we will check the percentage concentration of these gases that you inhale and the ones that you exhale. As you know, the atmospheric air contains all the gases that include the nitrogen, include oxygen, include carbon dioxide, and even water vapor also is in the air. There are percentage of these gases that get into the body. So you will breathe in all amount of air, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide. When we come to nitrogen, the nitrogen that you take in is 79%. And the nitrogen that you give out is 79%, which means the body do not consume any amount of nitrogen. That is why the one which gets in is 79%. The one which gets out, it's still the same amount. So the body has not used any amount of nitrogen. There's nowhere we can use it in the body. When come to amount of oxygen, 21%, which is in air, and that is the amount of oxygen that will flow into the lungs. The amount of oxygen, the way I've said that not all the oxygen will be used by the body. Therefore, there's some amount of oxygen that will still come out during exhalation. That is around 16%. So in this situation, which means the body will use around 5% of the oxygen. Then carbon dioxide, 0.04%, that is in air. So this 0.04 is taken in. But I've said that body cells also release more oxygen that goes into the lungs. So when the body cells release more oxygen, that is why there's high concentration of carbon dioxide coming out. That is 4%. So the difference in percentage of amount of air you inhale and the amount of air you exhale indicates that oxygen is being used by the body cells in respiration and carbon dioxide is being produced as a result of respiration. Higher percentage of carbon dioxide produced compared to the oxygen being taken out. Ventilation processes. I've said inhalation and exhalation. We'll check deep. What is this inhalation? What is this breathing in? When you breathe in, you take in oxygen. What enables the body to take in oxygen? So there are processes that enable you to breathe in. The structure of the lungs, that's how the structure of the lungs looks like. That is the structure of the lung. And I've said all these structures, we need them during breathing process or during ventilation process. So as we had seen, these structures, now we know their names. The name trachea, the bronchus, the bronchioles, the alveoli, the ribs. So all these structures, we are going to use them during the process of ventilation. So we are going to see one by one when you breathe in, what will happen during breathing in. If I try breathing in, I will feel the movement of the body. So in breathing in, there are movement of the thoracic cavity. So in the thoracic cavity, we have the ribs that will move upwards and outwards when during inhalation. So the ribs will move upwards and outwards. Between the ribs, I also indicated we have what we call intercostal muscles. So those muscles, they will also have to move because they are the one which bring about the ventilation process. So I've said the rib cage moves upwards and outwards. What about the intercostal muscles? There are two types of intercostal muscles. One, we have internal intercostal muscles. Two, we have external intercostal muscles. So during breathing in, the internal one will relax just to open to allow more amount of gas to get in, while the external intercostal muscles will contract because the lungs can overexpand. Just to prevent that, these intercostal muscles have to ensure that the internal ones relax and external one to contract. So the ribs, the intercostal muscles, and we have the diaphragm. Diaphragm will form what, as I have indicated here, it flattens. Okay, it stretches and flatten, or move downwards and flatten. So the diaphragm also has got the muscles. That muscles can move depending on the amount of air which is in the lung. Then this one will bring about what we call the changes. So there will be change in volume and there will be change in pressure of the lung. So the effect of ventilation, or largely breathing in will bring about the volume of the lung increase. The volume of the lung will increase and the pressure will do the other way round. So generally, in our learning of today, I've said you have to know all the structure of the lung, their function, how is each structure enable the body to carry out the breathing process. So we have indicated how it is important for those structures. Then the ventilation process, the amount of air that is taken into the body. Why is it that the nitrogen remain the same percentage while the oxygen percentage differ, high, low? And why is it carbon dioxide percentage also differ? That's what also you have to know. The ventilation process, you have to know that we have two types of ventilation process. That is breathing in and breathing out. Largely breathing in is the opposite of what we have talked about, the breathing out. The rib cage will now move inwards and downwards. The diaphragm will now form the dome shape. And overall, the volume of the lung will decrease and the pressure will increase. So you have to know this process, all ventilation and the process that occur or take place there. Thank you for today's presentation. I wish we meet in the next episode.
Are you looking for a school that nurtures your child's academic, spiritual, and personal growth? Andalusia Academy International School, where your child's future is our priority. We offer comprehensive education levels, kindergarten, Pearson I Primary Certificate, secondary and Pearson IGCSE certificates.
We are a school that emphasizes in the Deen and Dunya. It's integrated in that on the side of Islamic studies, we have Quran, we have Hadith, we have Arabic. And then of course in the secular side, we have all the subjects.
We focus on student-centered learning, where we engage our students in different levels. Other than that, we have very innovative teachers who help to cultivate creative thinking, problem solving, which are very, very key skills in our learners, not only in school, but also for their future.
Hello everyone, my name is Aisha Mohammed and I'm a student under Andalusia International School. I've been here for the past 5 years and I'm in year 11 right now, and my experience in this school so far has been amazing.
Admissions are available. Visit us today. We are located in Nairobi, South Sea, Andalusia Academy International School, where your child's future is our priority.